You boiling yet? Essentially today, you guys know that I shoot mostly film. And on this channel, I don't really upload too much on digital cameras, but I wanted to make a video today to really kind of talk about the three main digital cameras that I use and show you guys, what I think of them, because they're not new cameras whatsoever. Matter of fact, I kind of lean towards the older cameras, and you guys will find out why here in a second. Alright, so a couple of things before we get started with this video. First of all, we're at a brand new set. I have a lot of things that I need to explain to you guys, and we'll get onto that in a minute here. Secondly, we are testing out kind of like this new mic setup. So I'm not actually using the mic audio from the camera itself. We are connected to this one right here, which is leading over into my computer. So let me know how it sounds. Let me know how it looks. If you guys have any, suggestions, I'm keen to hear what you guys have to say. But yeah, while we wait for this coffee to kind of settle in before we press it down, we're going to be talking today about the digital cameras that I do own. I don't own too many of them, and the ones that I do own are very outdated, and I do that for a very specific reason. First things first, I just want to get out of the way. I am not switching completely to digital. I shoot both film and digital kind of, hand in hand. I don't really understand what the big issue is when people kind of lean like team digital or just team film. And I look at it from a perspective of, the tools that we use nowadays in 2020. So the way I like to think of it is of convenience. So, nowadays we are expecting things very quickly. And so I like to think of digital being just like a printer, in a sense that you can essentially get a whole page printed out very quickly. It's going to be, time efficient, especially if you have clients, and it's, really easy. Whereas maybe some people love using a typewriter, something that's more manual, something that's more analog, and that's what film is to me. You definitely get more of that hands-on feel, and you get a, very genuine type of experience with a typewriter. But if you're on a time crunch, and especially nowadays, nobody uses a typewriter anymore. And so that's kind of like how I like to see film and digital. If you are a photographer, why not just shoot both? Okay, my throat's a little dry here. Let's go ahead and get this coffee pressed. Get some ASMR action up in here. Let's see. How was that? Was it good? Hot. Now, as mentioned, all of my digital cameras are going to be somewhat on the older side, with the exception of one of them. And the reason for this is because I feel like nowadays digital cameras are at a point where they're all really good. Anything after like 2014, scratch that. Some cameras even before 2014 were really good as well. But with digital cameras nowadays, megapixel count to me, as long as it's over like something like 16 megapixels, I don't really care too much about it. That is more than enough for my purpose. That's more than enough for about 90% of the photographers out in the population. Realistically, you guys, if you need all of that megapixel count, you're going to be a commercial photographer, you're going to be a professional photographer who does it for a living. But if you're someone like me who does street photography and who does, occasionally take portraits for families and people, you don't always need the best of camera bodies. I personally like to invest more in the glass itself rather than the camera bodies, just because it seems like every year Sony, Fuji, Canon, Nikon, they're just releasing new cameras all the time. And with lenses, you just see different iterations of it with incremental improvements throughout, but nothing drastic changes. Okay, so I own 4 digital cameras, and the first one we're going to talk about is what is filming this video as we speak. The first camera, folks, is a Sony A7 II. Sony A7 Mark II. That is not with an R, with an S whatsoever. It's just the Sony A7 II. It has 24 megapixels and it shoots 1080p video with 24 frames a second and also 60 frames per second. Now, why I bought this camera? First of all, I got this camera I think late 2018, and geez, it was on a really good price at that time. For some reason, they were going used for like $500 to $600. I ended up paying around $750 for mine because it was in a little bit better condition. but used the A7 II cameras. Essentially, you know, in the A7 world are dirt cheap. With 24 megapixels, that is all I really need for my purposes. I really only use the A7 II when I do like family portraits or when I'm hired to do things like engagement shoots. And to be honest with you, that's not really my main, you know, type of work. And so I really just wanted a camera that was going to be reliable for YouTube, that was going to be able to make me videos, but also be there when I needed to take some photographs for different clients and whatnot. So the A7 II really just covers all of those bases for me. I have a 24-70 lens, and then I also rent out an 85mm 1.4 when I do need it. So I don't really own any of the lenses other than the 24-70 Carl Zeiss lens that is filming this video right now. But with that said though, you guys, I don't really use the 24-70 nowadays outside of just filming for YouTube. Rather, I use one of my other 3 digital cameras, and I'm going to kind of go in order here, starting from the, actually, let's go ahead and just pull both of them out here. Okay, so the first 2 digital cameras that I own are the Ricoh GR2 and the Ricoh GR3. Now, these cameras right here, you guys, are incredible. The Ricoh GR2 being the older brother of the GR3, of course. 16 megapixels on the GR2 and 24 megapixels on the GR3. Slight minor differences, but they are great pocket cameras for street photography. Now, let me touch on that really quick. So you guys know that I really love shooting street photography. Lately, I've been really getting into pocket cameras. I realized that I can shoot film with a pocket camera like the Olympus XA, but it's always just seems a little bit too slow. And you know, not as much control. And so I opted for the Ricoh GR2 at first, and the GR2 is a fantastic camera. At one point they were really cheap. They were going for about $300 to $400 when the GR3 came out, of course, but for some reason lately they've been skyrocketing in price. I mean, the GR2 right now I think is going for like $600 to $700. And I think it's because people are realizing just how important this camera was for the camera world. It really introduced a whole new kind of chapter to what street photography is and what it can be done with. And you know, you stick one of these in your pocket and you can go travel the world with a couple of batteries and come back with some of the most incredible images ever made. You really don't need a DSLR anymore. You don't need a mirrorless camera. You don't really need your Leicas. You don't need any of that if you have a pocket camera like the GR2. With that said though, of course, we all still like shooting those cameras, and so the GR2 isn't going to be for everyone, but I'm telling you guys, if you're looking for a pocket camera or just a side camera that you can just pull out anytime you want, the GR2 is a very, very solid choice. I love this camera to death, but I actually collaborated with Ricoh and you know, earned myself a little Ricoh GR3. But it took me a while to really understand what the GR3 was made for, and you know, why exactly people really enjoy this camera. First of all, higher megapixel count, same 28mm lens, and I should have mentioned that the GR2 has a 28mm lens as well. It's a little bit smaller than the GR2 in terms of length, but it is a little bit taller, and I'm talking like 0.5 millimeter taller here. It does have a touchscreen display here on the back, and when you turn it on, it still has that kind of front opening lens. Damn, there's somebody screaming outside. And on both cameras, autofocus is really fast, but one of the main features that I really love about the Ricoh GR cameras is snap focus. So if you guys have never heard of what snap focusing is, essentially it's just a preset that you can put into your camera for a distance that will automatically focus to when you full press your shutter. So it's the same thing really as zone focusing. So I like to have this set at like 1.5 meters, and you know, when I'm out in the street and I see something that is within the range, I can full press my shutter excuse me, and it'll give me that predetermined focus. So 1.5 meters, and that works both on the GR2 and as well as on the GR3. The GR3 also has some cool metering modes, like the highlight weighted metering, which is, you know, going to give you a nice kind of slide film type of look. And if that's something that you're into, you know, the crushed shadows while you retain all the highlights, that's definitely something that you can do with this camera. But overall, you guys, when I think of the Ricoh GR2 and GR3, if I were to pick one, and also, you know, considering price, considering availability, it's a very hard choice, because the GR2 is the same price right now, almost as the GR3. You probably get this $100, $200 cheaper than the GR3. And it says a lot, you know, about the GR2 itself compared to this guy. So I would say try it out for yourself. If you're looking at this video to maybe see what cameras you could buy, try it out. It's a very, very hard choice. I enjoy both cameras, but you know, I have been using the GR2 a lot more than the GR3 just because I've owned it a lot longer than the GR3. Now, pocket cameras are great, but one of the issues with pocket cameras is that you're very limited to, you know, being able to change your lens out. And I'll go to say this on record, you know, if I were to only have one of the Ricoh GR2s or GR3s for the rest of my life, I would be happy with that. With that said, I wanted something with the ability to change lenses. And so I ended up picking this guy up a couple of months, let's just say it was this year. I picked up this camera, the Fuji X-Pro II. Now, the X-Pro II is not the newest of, you know, the name, the flagship and whatnot. I think the X-Pro 3 is out, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really keep up with it too much anymore. The X-Pro II at the time was not the most expensive camera. I actually didn't even pay for this one. This was done out of a trade, but I figured if I got the X-Pro 3, you know, what big differences were there gonna be? Was it reasonable in terms of, you know, the money that I'm gonna be paying extra out of pocket for it? And so I ended up settling for the X-Pro 2. Now, I did at one point have the Fuji X-Pro 1, and I wanna kind of touch on that really quick. So the X-Pro 1 was a great camera. I only kept it though for about 2 weeks, and let me explain a little bit more why. So the Fuji X-Pro 1 had a really bad back LCD screen. And so after you would take a photograph and you would look at the LCD screen, it's such low resolution, and it could just be me that I just thought that every photo that I took in it wasn't looking that great. Turns out I put the SD card into my computer and bam, the images look stunning. They look really good. They had this insane kind of soft feel to it, almost like a warm film stock look, if that makes any sense. And so, you know, that was a great camera for me, but the LCD screen was something that, you know, if I'm shooting digital, I want to see it. You know, I shoot film all the time. Give me the opportunity to see at least my photographs if I'm shooting digital. So I sold the camera off. I had like the 40mm f2 on it. That was a great lens as well. And I ended up not getting another Fuji until the X-Pro 2. And the X-Pro 2 was everything that I thought it would be. First of all, it looks like a rangefinder film camera. It actually has a rangefinder window up here that you see through and use as, you know, kind of just like a optical viewfinder, if you will. But it also doubles as an LCD screen, which is great. Now, the LCD screen that's inside of the viewfinder, I don't generally use. When I'm using this camera, I'm either shooting through the back screen right here, or again, I'm shooting with the optical viewfinder to emulate what it would feel like shooting with my Leica. And I think that's really why I love the X-Pro 2. It has a really good feel in the hands. It's a lot bulkier than I thought it was going to be. Not much bulkier than the X-Pro 1. It has 24 megapixels. It has some crazy, insanely good presets built in. I really, really love using their, what is it called here? I think it's just called Classic Chrome, but the Classic Chrome looks good in here. I made a preset called Kodachrome. I don't think it looks anything like it, but it definitely gives off a really cool, you know, image. And this was one of the cameras that just really inspired me to go out and shoot a lot. Along with the GR2, you know, when I wasn't shooting film and I wanted to take a digital camera out, these cameras made me feel like going out there and just exploring. And I have the 23mm f2 on this camera right here, and this is the only lens that I own for this system. And you know, this is all I can really ask for. It gives me a 35mm equivalent, and if you ask me, that is the perfect focal length for anything really, in my opinion. Probably not for landscape, but I have gotten so much use out of my Fuji X-Pro 2. I've done multiple shoots with it. I've shot tons and tons of street photography with it, and I don't think at any time soon I'll be selling this guy right here. So again, sometimes opting for the older versions of the cameras can get you a lot more value, especially if you are new to the system. If you maybe have had like the previous generation models like the X-Pro 1, and you wanted to go for the X-Pro 3, that is a very big jump in quality, and I think you would be fine doing that. But if you're going to be brand new to like the Fuji system or even to the Ricoh system, I would really just look online, do your research, find what model, you know, has some of the most relatable features to like the newest model and go for that one. That really kind of is the only 4 cameras that I want and really will own from this point on. With the Sony camera in front of me recording, I have a slight itch to upgrade it in the near future, but I'm thinking of maybe, you know, running this thing into the ground and just seeing how long I can survive on YouTube with it. But I definitely want to upgrade that camera in the future. In terms of the GR2 and the GR3, these 2 cameras right here, guys, they're just never going to go anywhere. They're going to stay with me pretty much all the time. The GR2 I took with me to the Philippines, and of course just recently acquiring the GR3. It still has yet to have a trip, so you know, when COVID kind of frees up and we're all healthy and safe to travel, you best bet this is going to go in the bag with the Leica. And of course, man, the X-Pro 2. You can't go wrong with it. So that's, you know, all of the cameras that I use, man. So let me know what cameras you guys have in the comments down below. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. And also, you know, on the whole idea of buying not the newest and greatest, but more of the older ones that still provide a lot of value, because I know for sure that there are a lot of people out there who can relate to that, and I just want to know your guys' thoughts on it. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, Minolta gang. I can't even do it anymore. I gotta go.